I never knew a captain's mistake would turn a playboy into a millionaire doctor. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was heavy, thick like molasses, as my heart raced. My brother, Ryan, the golden boy, was laughing with friends 1 minute and then everything changed. A call. A screeching siren. I remember the smell of burnt rubber, the distant sound of sirens, the way my breath hitched in my throat. They said it was a freak accident. A captain's mistake while piloting a private jet. My brother, notorious for his reckless ways, felt immortal. Until he didn't. Ryan had always been the playboy. Parties, expensive cars, beautiful women surrounding him. Confidence radiated off him like the sun. But deep down, I saw the cracks. I could sense it in his eyes, a longing for something more. A craving for respect, a hint of tragedy that clung to him. We were family bonded by blood but divided by choices that I couldn't fathom the shift that would follow. The chaos it unleashed. Our parents a whirlwind of sorrow. Our mother, her sobs like a haunting melody. Our father, a stone wall of silence, looking out the window, lost in thoughts that never seemed to reach the surface. Anger simmered beneath our skin. Why him? And then, the unexpected twist. Hours turned into days, and with every whispered secret in hushed tones, I learned something unimaginable. The captain's error would somehow flip our lives upside down. It led to Ryan inheriting a fortune, a business empire suddenly thrust upon him, but it wasn't just money, it was the respect that came with it. The status. The power. Suddenly, the boy who once charmed his way through life became the millionaire doctor. A superficial mask, I thought. Was it too late for him? For us? We were strangers within the same blood, people adjusting to roles forced upon them by tragedy. And then came the revelation that made my skin crawl. There were rumors, whispers of insurance settlements, of ties not tied to Ryan's past but to something darker. Dangerous. Shadows began creeping into our lives. People I'd never seen before lingered, always watching. Were they threats from our past or the remnants of Ryan's lavish lifestyle? I felt it in the air. A storm brewing, ready to unleash chaos. Where was my brother in all of this? Who was he becoming? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days blurred, each one a reflection of sorrow and confusion. I found myself wandering through the halls of our family's home, which felt alien, filled with ghosts of laughter that once echoed off the walls. Photos of Ryan decked the mantel, vibrant and full of life parties, vacations, laughing with friends. In those moments, I was proud of him, he defined joy and excitement. But now, these images served as reminders of a life shattered, the weight of his loss crushing my chest. The first few weeks after the accident were the hardest. I remember the day I found my mother curled up on the sofa, a blanket draped over her shoulders, staring blankly at the television, which played a mindless show she didn't even notice. I sat beside her, wrapped my arms around her, and tried to comfort her, but my own heart felt too heavy to mend hers. "What am I going to do without him?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. That I didn't have an answer. The world spun around us as the weeks turned into a blur of funeral arrangements and discussions about who would take over Ryan's new empire. My parents insisted on saying nothing had changed, but in reality, everything had shifted, and yet, life continued to push forward. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in colors too beautiful for this moment of mourning, I stepped outside for air. I needed to escape the suffocating weight of grief, at least for a moment. The cool breeze brushed against my skin, and I closed my eyes, letting the chaos of my thoughts settle. It was then that I noticed Hima's figure at the edge of the yard, standing ominously. I squinted, trying to see clearly, but the shadows obscured his face. At first glance, he looked like one of those men who shadowed Ryan in his old life, with an air of confidence paired with danger. I hesitated, heart pounding as I considered retreating indoors. But before I could turn, he suddenly stepped into the light, and I recognized the familiar contours of someone who had once been close to Ryan. Lucas, his former partner and best friend. "Hey," he said, sounding uncertain. "I just wanted to see how you're holding up." There was something in his eyes, an invitation to understand the turmoil beneath the surface, a connection forged from shared loss. "It's been hard," I replied, the words stilted, raw, and unsteady. He moved closer, filling the gap between us with a presence that felt comforting, yet something darker lingered in the air. "You're not alone in this, you know. Ryan, he cared about you more than you could ever imagine," Lucas said, shoving his hands into the pockets of his jacket. "But there's something I need to tell you about the accident." A chill crept down my spine. I didn't want to hear more about it, didn't want to delve deeper into that pit of despair. Please," he interrupted, urgency etched into his features. "Just hear me out. There's more to this than what they're saying. I know Ryan was reckless, but I have reason to believe the captain wasn't the only one at fault." The world around me grew distant as his words hit me. "What do you mean?" "I've been looking into things since the crash, trying to piece together what really happened. There were discussions about money being exchanged, and I think it might be connected to some of the people that have been hanging around your family since you know." The shadows seemed to deepen, the air growing heavier as I searched Lucas's face for clues. "Who?" I breathed, panic threatening to claw its way to the surface. Before he could respond, a car pulled up the driveway. A sleek black vehicle, unfamiliar and imposing. My heart raced as I turned to face the intruder who emerged from the car, a man with an aura of authority who I recognized from the whispers in my parents' conversations, like a specter from our past come to haunt us. "Lucas, we need to go. Now," I exclaimed, sensing the tension rising. But before we could move, the stranger was already approaching, his eyes locking onto me with a sinister intrigue. "This is going to be more complicated than you think," he said, his smile a thin veneer over something darker. The weight of uncertainty and foreboding settled on my shoulders like lead as I stood frozen in place, caught between the truth I didn't want to hear and the dangers lurking closer with every heartbeat. I could sense the balance tipping, teetering on the edge of a precipice, and just like that, the storm I had feared was no longer brewing. It was here, and I was at the eye of it, blinded by the very truth I needed to confront. There was an inexplicable heaviness in the air, mingled with disbelief and the rush of adrenaline flooding my veins. The stranger's presence loomed over me like a shadow, his intentions unclear but menacing. I took a step back, feeling Lucas's tense energy beside me. He was a lifeline, but could he truly save me from whatever this was? "Who are you?" I managed to ask, voice trembling. The man smirked, his dark eyes narrowing as if my fear only fueled his amusement. "You can call me Victor," he said, his tone smooth yet all the more unsettling. "And I believe we have much to discuss." Lucas spoke next, his voice low and steady. "We don't have time for games, Victor. Just leave her alone." I shot a glance at Lucas, gratitude blooming in my chest even amidst the dread. The bond we shared in this moment was beyond words, a flickering flame amidst the engulfing darkness, refusing to be snuffed out. Victor, however, merely chuckled, the sound echoing against the quietude of the evening. "Games? Oh no, Lucas. The stakes are far too high for games. We're playing for keeps now. Whatever you think you want." I began to protest but was halted by the sardonic lift of Victor's brow. "Whatever I want?" He leaned closer, invading my personal space. "What I want, sweetheart, is for you to understand that Ryan's accident was just the tip of the iceberg. This family you're familiar is more entangled in secrets than you realize." That I felt the ground beneath me shift, the very foundation of my understanding crumbling. "The truth? What truth?" I had only just begun to grapple with Ryan's death, and now this man was hurling allegations into the mix. Without another word, I turned to Lucas, my eyes pleading for reassurance. He caught my gaze, the determination in his expression a silent promise. But his confident front faltered slightly, revealing the flicker of uncertainty. Victor noticed, the predator in him sensing my fear that I can help you uncover all of it, he continued, voice coiling around me like a serpent. But you have to trust me, and more importantly, you have to be ready for what comes next. The truth may shatter your world, but it might just be the key to understanding Ryan's choices. A wave of nausea washed over me, the tug-of-war between hope and despair waging fiercely in my heart. I had wanted the truth ever since the moment the news reached me, the sickening twist of fate that had stolen my brother. Did that truth lie in the dark corners where secrets whispered, the very shadows I feared? Before I could respond, a commotion erupted behind us. The distant sound of sirens sliced through the tension-filled atmosphere, the shrill echo nearing with each passing moment. My heart raced anew, dread curling in the pit of my stomach. Were they here for me? Lucas, I stuttered, desperately searching for clarity amid the chaos. That we need to go, now. Lucas urged, grabbing my wrist and urging me to move. The urgency in his voice rang true, igniting an instinctual need to flee whatever was drawing dangerously close. Victor stepped back, his lips curling into a disarming smile that felt anything but genuine. Oh, but the night is just beginning, my dear. We'll meet again, trust me. With those final words hanging heavily in the air, I let Lucas pull me toward the rear exit of the house. The world outside felt frenetic, the blaring sirens blending with my racing heart. I had left pieces of myself behind in that yard, my memories, my brother's laughter, and even the fragile hope for peace crushed under Victor's veiled threats. As we slipped into the shadows of the nearby trees, I turned to Lucas, breathless. What do we do now? For a brief moment, his eyes softened, and the warm glow of trust flickered back to life. Now we find out the truth, together. We figure out what happened to Ryan. We owe him that much, but we also need to stay ahead of whatever Victor knows. Just as the sounds of sirens faded into the distance, a cold wind swept through the trees, chilling my bones. I felt the weight of something watching us, waiting just beyond the fringes of the night. Stay close, Lucas whispered, and as we ventured deeper into the dark embrace of uncertainty, a sharp clang echoed nearby. My heart dropped as I turned. The tall shadow of someone loomed at the edge of the yard where we had just escaped, and I realized with horror that we had left more than just secrets in our wake. We were not alone. The air was thick with anxiety as Lucas and I ducked into the tangled underbrush behind the old oak trees, our breaths mingling with the fragrant night air, still laced with the scent of damp earth. I could barely process the weight of Victor's words as they echoed darkly in my mind. There was a dark undercurrent to our family's past, a tapestry woven with threads of betrayal and loss. And here I was, just beginning to grasp it all when it felt like the ground was collapsing beneath me. Do you think he'll follow us? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, fear woven into every syllable. That I don't know, Lucas replied, his brow furrowed as he scanned the empty yard, the shadows flickering like phantoms. But we can't stay here. We need to get to my car, it's parked around the corner. I nodded, grateful for his unwavering presence. What if he finds out where we're going? Then we'll be ready. His jaw tightened, determination radiating from him, but I could see the worry lurking in the corners of his eyes. It was a burden he shouldn't have had to carry alone. I wanted to comfort him, to reassure him that we would make it through this, but the reality of the threat we faced cast a relentless shadow over my thoughts. We slipped around the side of the house, moving quietly beneath the cover of night. My mind raced with disjointed thoughts. Images of Ryan's bright smile splashed with the stark memory of his silent absence felt like daggers, tearing at the gaping wound in my heart. How could I yearn for the truth when the truth felt so monstrous? Just as we reached the open space near the road, the sound of footsteps broke through the night, sharp and deliberate. Lucas halted, his body freezing as if sensing something lurking in the darkness. I pressed myself against the trunk of a tree, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Did you hear that? I whispered, my voice trembling. Lucas nodded, his expression grim as he slowly turned his head towards the direction of the sound. "Stay here," he instructed, putting a small distance between us, protective instincts igniting within him. I watched him slip away, a dark silhouette melded into the shadows just beyond my line of sight. The night felt impossibly long, heartbeat loud in my ears, desperation clawing at me. I wanted to scream his name, to pull him back, but the urging feeling to stay hidden consumed me. Suddenly, from behind the tree, a figure emerged, a woman with strikingly familiar features outlined against the moonlight. My breath caught in my throat as disbelief wrestled with a warmth blossoming inside me. "Lisa?" The voice was soft, the name falling from her lips like a whisper carried on the wind, filled with longing and regret. "Mom?" I stammered, disoriented and overwhelmed. The woman before me, once so distant, had come back into my orbit like a comet returning after years of absence. But it wasn't just the shock of her appearance. It was the years of unanswered questions, the chasm of silence between us that suddenly felt unbearable. "Why are you here?" I could hardly conjure the words. Sorrow and bewilderment tumbled over each other, unraveling the tightly woven thread of my composure. Her gaze softened, but it was edged with something that felt like fear. "I came back to warn you. To protect you from what's coming. You shouldn't have been dragged into this, but you are. The truth about Ryan, it's more dangerous than you think." "Mom, what are you talking about? What do you know?" Frustration bubbled up as I felt her motives slipping away from my grasp. But before she could respond, the earth beneath my feet trembled with the unmistakable sound of someone approaching. Lucas' figure flickered back into view, just as the chilling realization settled over us. The looming figure of Victor was heading directly toward us, his intentions cloaked in darkness. "Go. Get out of here," Lucas shouted, urgency enveloping his voice. I felt panic claw at my throat as I grabbed my mother's arm, pulling her urgently toward the trees. "Lisa, trust me," she pleaded, but Victor's laugh echoed through the night, a predatory sound that ignited a primal fear deep within me. He was close now, his dark silhouette towering and foreboding. "Going somewhere?" he drawled, stepping into the light cast by the distant street lamp, every cadence of his voice twisted with malice. Lucas moved to shield us, his body a barrier against the encroaching darkness, but I could see the glint of uncertainty in his eyes. Would it be enough to keep Victor at bay? In that charged moment, fear and resolve intertwined, creating a tangled web of uncertainty. "Stop right there," Lucas bellowed, raw energy coursing through him, but a flicker of terror gripped my heart. The hunt was far from over. My mother's hand tightened around my wrist, her expression a mix of warning and regret, carrying with it an unspoken truth that threatened to unravel everything. "Mom, please. Tell me what's going on," I demanded, the weight of her silence a crushing force between us. But the sound of approaching footsteps reverberated in my ears, drowning out my plea as I realized with growing horror that we were outnumbered. Victor's men, lurking in the depths of the shadows, advanced toward us. I could feel the icy fingers of fear grasping at my throat as the weight of it all made me feel small and trapped. And then, as Lucas took a step forward, his exposure drawing the focus of our would-be captors, I turned back to my mother, desperation clawing at my chest. "Please, I need to know, are you here to help me or to hurt me?" The question hung heavily in the air, mingling with the promise of danger looming right behind us. My mother's lips parted, the truth dangling on the tip of her tongue, but all I could see was the blood pounding in Lucas' temples, the shadows creeping closer, the thought of losing them both mangled within the web of secrets threatening to ensnare us. And then it shattered like glass. Victor grinned, his men closing in, and suddenly everything sped up, collapsing around us as I braced for the unknown, the threat unfolding like a churning storm ready to swallow us whole. The air buzzed with dread as Victor's men surrounded us, their silhouettes lethal against the fading twilight. Time fractured into pieces, moments stretching painfully long as my heart raced. Each thump echoed in my ears, a drum announcing an impending chaos while the world around me spiraled into uncertainty. "Let her go," Lucas shouted, his voice laced with defiance. It was a sound that once inspired bravery within me, but now felt like the desperate yelp of a wolf caught in a snare. I tried to reach for him, to reassure him that we could navigate this together, but the grip of my mother's hand held me back. "Lisa, don't. It's not safe," she insisted as the shadows crept closer, threatening to engulf us whole. Her voice was urgent, a window into years of protection and love that had been swallowed by her own choices, but underneath it all lay an unshakable fear. "Stop." I cried out, tearing my gaze from Lucas long enough to look into my mother's eyes, searching for solace amidst the madness. "You came here to help me, right? You have to tell me the truth." "Our past is dangerous," she reiterated, urgency edging her tone. "Everything you've learned, everything you thought you knew, it's tangled, Lisa. Ryan's disappearance, Victor, it's all intertwined." I had no choice. The words hung in the air like a noose tightening around my neck, and I struggled against the suffocating essence of those revelations. Shadows moved closer, drawn by the flickering light, while Victor's laughter cut through, rich and malevolent. "That I hate to interrupt this touching family reunion," he said with mockery, his chilling gaze settling on each of us, savoring our fear. "But I really must insist that you pay attention to the game at hand. You seem to think you can escape the consequences of your family's secrets. I know about Ryan." His revelation struck me like a fist to the gut, catching my breath and leaving me gasping in disbelief. What do you mean?" I stammered, my voice trembling. "Ah, the sweet innocence of youth," Victor taunted, his eyes glinting dangerously. "Your brother was never meant to find out. He was a threat to our business. A loose end, as it were." "Stop!" I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat as memories of Ryan's laughter blended with the darker undertones of this night. Panic enveloped me, and confusion tapered into anger. "You're lying," Victor stepped forward, invading my space as he leaned down, a dark predator uncovering his prey. "Am I?" he asked, his breath tainted with malice. "Clever little Lisa, don't you want to know why your mother abandoned you? Why all of this happened?" "No," I cried, recoiling from the truth he dangled like bait, desperately clinging to the pieces of the love I had once believed remained untouched, but my mother's face, taut with torment, began to fracture the fairy tale I had constructed around her. "Lisa, I run!" Lucas shouted suddenly, and somehow, in the chaos of panic and adrenaline, his voice broke through the despair, sharpening my focus. He leaped forward, tangling with one of Victor's men, wresting free the cold steel of a knife before tumbling to the ground. Before I could process it, my survival instinct ignited flame within me. I jerked my hand from my mother's grasp, racing toward Lucas, fear morphing into determination as I knew, even through the haze of overwhelming emotion, I couldn't let him face this alone. "Stay behind me," he barked, but I had already pushed past the barrier he had formed, adrenaline carrying me onward. The world spiraled into chaos, shouts erupting as fists collided and darkness roared closer. I caught a glimpse of my mother's raw anguish in the background as her presence twisted between shadows and light, caught in the crossfire of her past, a history pulling her apart. In that frantic moment chaos began to dance around us. My heart pounded against my ribs like a wild bird trapped in a cage while I fought to reach Lucas. We ducked behind a tree, the branches grazing our arms, slick with the dew of anxiety. "I can't let you face this alone," I panted, fear still coursing through my veins but anchored firmly by the urgency of the moment. "We have to find a way out," he insisted, breathing heavily, the tenacity of his presence burning bright, but in the back of my mind, the truth began to unfurl, a riddle that threatened to unravel everything I thought I knew. What danger did my mother hold? What was the sacrifice she had made? My thoughts were interrupted by the piercing scream of panic as one of Victor's men advanced toward us, a malicious grin stretching across his face. My fight-or-flight instinct surged, and in that instant, I grabbed a fallen branch, swinging it in desperation. The connection seemed small against the larger struggle, but it did its job, catching him off guard and forcing him to stumble back, momentarily dazed. "Go!" Lucas urged, pushing me forward even as I stood rooted to the spot. The darkness around us grew thicker, the fight spiraling wildly as the weight of our reality pressed down heavily upon us. Just then, amidst the cacophony of chaos, a sudden piercing scream cut through the air. It was my mother, a sound filled with agony, unmasking the heart-churning devotion she had for me. "Mom!" I yelled desperately, my body propelled forward, wanting to shield her against the storm that was closing in on us, but as I turned back to find her, the shadows flickered unnaturally, and Victor's laughter hung high in the air like a predator standing over its prey. A sudden, deafening silence filled the space between us, and realization washed over me like a wave. I was not merely being confronted by the remnants of my family's past, I was standing at the precipice of a future that could alter everything, and beneath it all lay a cavernous abyss of secrets waiting to swallow us whole, and before my eyes, the truth began to reveal its haunting face in the flickering darkness, poised at the edge of everything I had ever believed. The night pressed down on us like a thick shroud, wrapping around my thoughts and mingling with the chaos erupting all around. I stood frozen, heart racing, breath coming in ragged gasps as I pieced together the enormity of what Victor had just revealed. My mother, the woman who had shielded me from the sins of her past, held within her the very secrets that might shatter our fragile existence. "Mom!" I screamed, my voice rising above the din. The shadows slithered past me, and I felt inverse gravity pulling me downward, as if the very ground sought to erase my memories. As the commotion danced around me like a tempest, my eyes darted back and forth. I could barely discern where Lucas was, his silhouette lost among the shifting figures, but I knew instinctively that I needed to reach him if we were to survive whatever lay ahead. Suddenly, a flicker of light caught my attention. We had stumbled into an area illuminated by an old lamp post, its golden glow casting a surreal warmth amid the growing darkness. It felt like a beacon, a small hope gleaming in the desolation. "There!" I shouted, locking eyes with Lucas, who was trading blows with another one of Victor's men. In that moment, the world froze, time dragged as my heart seemed to plead for both Lucas and my mother, dangling in a dangerous game of fate. I broke into a determined sprint toward Lucas, but before I could reach him, a heavy hand gripped my upper arm. Victor's right-hand man, the hulking beast that had shadowed him since the beginning. "Let her go!" Lucas bellowed, the anguish in his voice rekindling my resolve, and in a surge of adrenaline, I broke free from the man's grasp, a pulse of energy igniting within me. With a swift movement, I maneuvered around him, positioning myself beside Lucas, my heart pounding in sync with his as we faced the encroaching danger together. "We can't stay here," I urged, looking into his eyes. They reflected livid determination laced with an urgency born of desperation. "But your mom," he started, his voice strained. "She's strong. She needs us to find a way out." The words tasted bitter on my tongue, for deep down, an unsettling fear gnawed at me, a gnawing doubt about how far I was willing to go to protect her. With our plan forged out of the chaos, we pushed deeper into the shadow's embrace, darting through fragments of light as we sought safety among the trees. Branches clawed at me, leaving scratches, but every pain felt insignificant compared to the weight of the secrets threatening to consume our very souls. The darkness swirled, uncertainty looming everywhere, but just as I felt myself beginning to shrink under it, a surprising warmth blossomed in my chest. It was a moment of pure connection, a single heartbeat reminding me of our shared fight. Lucas grabbed my hand tightly, a link between trust and faith. "Well, get through this," he whispered, soft yet firm, his voice steadying my racing thoughts. The sounds of struggle behind us began to fade, but so did the sense of urgency we needed to escape. Just then, a distant shout rippled through the air. It was laced with surprise, accented by the promise of someone on our side. Could it be help? My heart surged again, curiosity mixed with disbelief. "Did you hear that?" Before Lucas could respond, another round of shouting echoed, this time mixed with some familiar voices. I strained to listen, recognition sparking amidst the chaos. It was my friends, who must have sensed the danger, rushing into the fray. "What are they doing here?" I murmured, excitement bubbling against the edges of my worry. "This way," Lucas urged, breaking into a sprint once more, dragging me behind as we raced toward the sound. Around us, the night felt electric, charged with possibility. It was incredible how, amidst the encroaching shadows, hope flickered like the flames unwilling to be extinguished. But fear flickered within me too. It sat like a coiled serpent at the base of my thoughts, a reminder of the uncertainties that lay ahead, and then, as we surged forward, the words escaped me before I had a moment to hold them back. What if it is a trap? My heart sank at the very notion, my mind unable to separate reality from the fear. With friends, it's always better than facing darkness alone, Lucas answered, his voice steady but his eyes hinting at uncertainty. But our resolve was tested just as we reached the clearing where my friends had gathered, their eyes wide with shock and concern. I barely took a breath before an explosion shook the ground nearby, and time seemed to stretch once more, the world slowing as my heart plummeted. From the cloud of dust, he emerged, the man who had taken Ryan, the harbinger of my family's secrets. Victor's laughter echoed hauntingly in my ears as I realized then that this night held more than chaos. It cradled the very truths I had fought to unearth, tainted with blood and regret. As I stood before the nightmare of my reality, the trembling cliff of uncertainty threatened to pitch me into an abyss far greater than any fear. The air was thick with the remnants of smoke and uncertainty as I stared at Victor, my heart thrumming erratically against my rib cage. The ground beneath me felt shaky, an uncertain foundation beneath the weight of his insidious smile. He seemed to relish the chaos unfolding around us, his eyes glinting like shards of ice reflecting the fear swirling in ours. Ah, look who we have here, Victor purred, his voice oozing with smug satisfaction. The prodigal daughter returns home, just in time for the show. He stepped forward, drawing dangerously close, and I recoiled instinctively at the proximity of the familiar evil. What do you want? I spat out, my voice stronger than the trembling in my knees. I fought against the surge of dread that threatened to drown my will, focusing instead on the flicker of hope embedded in my friend's presence. They had come for me, and even in the face of Victor's looming threat, that meant something. Want? Oh, sweetheart, I merely wish to enlighten you. His sneer deepened, and I felt the warmth of Lucas' hand squeeze mine tightly, offering an invigorating anchor in the turmoil. And perhaps, in the process, we can discuss your mother's delightful little secrets, he continued, and my heart lurched at the mention of her name. Behind me, I could feel my friends shifting nervously, their unease rippled outwards, and I gathered strength from their uncertainty. Leave her out of this, I shouted, my voice catching as desperation thrummed beneath it. I could practically taste the bitterness of fear, mixing with the determination still flickering inside me like a stubborn flame refusing to die. Leave her out of it? Victor laughed, a dark, sinister sound filled with hollow disregard. But she's the key to everything you're afraid of. From the corner of my eye, I caught sight of Ryan, his frame marked with weariness, yet he looked more resolute than anyone I had ever seen. We won't let you touch her, Victor, he said, stepping forward, an invisible barrier forming around us like an unbreakable bond. I turned to Lucas, his jaw clenched, and in that moment, I realized how deeply this fight rattled him too. What if he knows? I began, but he interrupted, his voice low but fearless. We confront him together. That way, he gets nothing. With my heart trapped between fear and solidarity, I nodded, our grip on each other's hands tightening. But before we could accuse or counter, a sudden commotion from behind drew our attention. A fractured melody of screams mingled with explosions, and shadows danced across the clearing. The hesitation stretching between us dissipated momentarily as we turned, unprepared for the sight unfurling before us. Victor's men flooded in, their faces twisted with rage and desperation as they rushed toward us, and the sight ignited a primal instinct within me. We have to go, I yelled, breaking into a run, pulling Lucas along as Ryan and the others followed swiftly behind. Our only path was through the heart of darkness, where secrets lay just waiting to be discovered. The once solid semblance of safety began to dissolve like mist around us. I could see the panic in my friends' eyes, their fear now palpable, and yet amid the chaos, I felt the stirring of urgency blossom into something more profound, a fierce determination to confront everything we had been avoiding. That we can't let him win, I whispered to Lucas, breathless as we dashed through the underbrush. Every step I took felt like a rebellion against the omnipresent threat lurking behind us. Every thudding heartbeat echoed the untold truths we were now charged to face. We need to find my mom. Then that's what we'll do, he assured, glancing back to gauge the distance of our pursuers. The shadows hung heavily around us, as if the very night sought to ensnare our spirits, but even still, I could feel stirrings of something greater. Hope felt more tangible when shared amongst friends, fortifying our resolve. Just as we crossed into a deeper part of the woods, a flashing blue light pierced the darkness, illuminating the chaos that surrounded our flight. Sirens wailed. In the distance, a dissonant symphony blending with the fight beyond. "Help!" I screamed, flailing my arms at the lights, praying for salvation to break through the night. But there was no respite. All that answered was the echo of Victor's dark laughter, reverberating through the trees, promising more despair. "Did I won't let them take you," Lucas whispered fiercely, his breath warm against my cheek. And in that statement, I felt the weight of every untold secret, every hidden truth echoing between us. This was not just about my mother anymore, it was a battle to reclaim our futures, our identities, and perhaps, the frail thread that tied us together. As we plunged deeper into the suffocating shadows, reality twisted around us. The labyrinth of trees curled like a web, and in our pursuit of light, the path became more obscured. The promise of help felt further away, and the metallic scent of anxiety hung thick in the air when I spotted Ida flickering light through the twisting echelons. "Lucas, over there!" I gasped, tugging at his hand as we darted towards the glow. But just before we reached it, there came another explosion, sending debris scattering against the earth, shaking me to my core. My chest tightened as I fell, the world spiraling into chaos once more. Just as I placed my hands against the ground to steady myself, I caught sight of movement, and my breath caught in my throat. A figure staggered from the darkness ahead. The silhouette was familiar, yet the figure moved with a grace that felt off, tainted by the violence that surrounded us. The night swallowed my shout as I recognized the figure. "Mom?" My voice trembled like a fragile whisper against the roaring storm, every ounce of my hope crashing down on the brink of realization. And as her haunted eyes locked with mine, a chilling truth coiled around my heart like a vice. Sometimes, the shadows that conceal are the very same that betray. The revelation hung heavy in the air, pregnant with secrets that begged to be unveiled, twisting deeper into the darkness from which there might be no escape. My pulse thundered in my ears as I stood frozen, torn between the elation of seeing my mother alive and the unease threading through her expression. What had happened to her? The chaos around us faded into a murmur as I took a tentative step forward, desire to reach her battling with my instinct urging caution. "Don't come any closer," she rasped, her voice choked and foreign, sending another wave of dread crashing over me. The light that enveloped her was flickering, not just from the explosions around us but from the shivering essence of her being, as if she was a specter caught in a web of pain. "You don't understand." Lucas' grip on my arm tightened, his unwavering presence driving me to fight through the tempest of confusion swirling in my mind. "What happened?" I managed, my heart aching at the sight of my mother, frail yet defiant. Surely, within the confines of her torment, there lay answers that might unearth our way to safety that I can't explain here. Her eyes darted beyond me, searching perhaps for the demonic shadows that lay in wait. "Victor will hunt you. No, I shook my head vehemently, feeling for the first time the weight of our purpose. "I won't let him hurt you again. We need, for God's sake, just listen." The urgency in her tone pierced through my spiraling thoughts. "I made mistakes. Things he knows, things that will pull you deeper into this nightmare. You must go before it's too late." Her gaze burned into mine, begging for understanding as she took a shaky step backward, her eyes betraying the fragility of her resolve. A sudden crash nearby sent Ryan and Lucas twisting around, their bodies poised for defense, shields forging between us. They understood, though her call for distance was stacked with panic. It felt heavy in the air. A loud whisper warning treasures often carried burdens. "I can't leave you." My voice broke, desperation lacing the words. I refused to retreat to the shadows while the hold of Victor tightened around our lives. "We'll find another way out. Together, sometimes, staying is the greatest danger," she murmured, turning away with a flicker of disappointment resting on her features. But the urgency in her demeanor became more pronounced. "You need to understand who Victor truly is. I thought I could protect you, but I stop. I interrupted, frustration bubbling over. You're not making sense. The only one keeping us here is him. I was protecting you until I wasn't. Her voice cracked open a crevice of reality that made my heart race with fear. You don't know the truth I carried all these years, and without it, you'll repeat the same mistakes. Tell me. I need to know. The sirens wailed once more, and through the splintering chaos, I could sense movement closing in on us, shadows spiraling as if summoning the very darkness we fought against. The flickering light continued to pulse, desperate for salvation. Lucas leaned in, whispering fiercely, "We have to regroup. This isn't safe," but my mother's gaze held me captive. Just as I resolved to step closer, the glimmer of regret in her eyes ignited an unsettling intuition within me. "What did Victor want from you? Why him?" She hesitated, her walls closing up, and my world felt like it was collapsing around the fragmented pieces of trust left between us. "He uses people, Olivia. He'll stop at nothing to get what he wants." "Mom, no." I shouted, but the words fell into an abyss of uncertainty, swallowed by the din vibrating all around us. In that moment of violent clarity, the truth closed in like a noose around my neck. If my mother had secrets buried under her rancor, Victor wasn't just a villain, he was a puppet master weaving a web around souls, fractures erupting from the past, and my own life was the price of his game. As the shadows surged closer, my heart pounded, and the spark of hope within me flickered nervously. "We won't let him drag us down. You're stronger than he thinks." Just then, a flash of darkness rushed past, and a thundering roar echoed in the distance followed by a thunderous explosion. Our world splintered, torn apart by the forces we could barely comprehend. I yanked my mother closer, shielding her with my body, but the heat from the explosion caught and twirled, encasing us all. And then I felt it, something wet and warm trickling down my arm. I looked down to see crimson blossoms spreading across my shirt. "Mom?" I could hear the tremor in my voice, spiraling into despair as shock wrapped around my heart. She stuttered, reaching towards me as her figure flickered like the flares surrounding us. The color in her cheeks drained away beneath our piercing eyes, and suddenly, Victor's laughter erupted once more, filling the void left behind. I could feel it constricting around us. No. My cry echoed into the night, wild and raw, shattering the fragile barrier of hope that had previously flickered between us. The realization struck like lightning in my veins. Everything I thought I knew was the precipice of a deeper deception, and within moments, we might find ourselves lost entirely. Just as I felt her slip from her hold, specters of dread pushing back, I saw Lucas step forward bravely, ready to shield us from whatever darkness crept closer, from whatever fate Victor had conjured against us. But in that shimmering haze, filled with screams and cascading shadows, I could sense the encroaching truth, and as I reached for my mother, the world dissolved into chaos. The last flicker of hope would hold the key, but with every passing heartbeat, it felt more and more like a sin buried in the very same shadows I wished to escape. I steeled myself against the cold grasp of despair gripping my heart. It couldn't end here. Not like this. The fight hadn't just begun, it was an inheritance, one we all must carry, regardless of the looming shadows whispering of despair. In that split second before the darkness enveloped us, a new surge of determination ignited within me, binding me tightly to those gathered around me. I would not give up. I would not be consumed by his lies. But as the reality of our circumstances cascaded upon us, and the darkness approached like a predator hunting its prey, I thought I heard my mother whisper one last thing, words etched with a weight far greater than the chaos around us: "You have to remember you are much more than you realize." In the silence that followed her hushed tones, I felt the world swirl into oblivion, and the shocking revelation that my mother carried, like leaden stones weighing on her heart, drove me to scream, and with it, my voice reverberated through the thunder. Would we ever find an escape? Would I finally unveil the truth gnawing at my insides? Today, all we had was the fight within us, and that glimmer of defiance against this crippling fate, the echo of hope in darkness, where shadows and truths collided. The sky was a blanket of ash, swirling with the remnants of chaos and escape. Each pained breath I took laced the air around me with desperation, an echo of my mother's fading words still trembling in my ears. I grasped her hand tighter, but the warmth was fading, replaced by an ominous chill that crept through the fissures of our fragile reality. "Mom, please. Stay with me," I urged, urgency lacing each syllable, but she was slipping. The shadows, Victor's shadows, were curling around us, igniting a relentless fear that clawed at my heart. Ryan and Lucas, despite their concerns, moved around us, searching for a path through the carnage, their faces tense as they scanned the perimeter. I could hear the distant rumble of Victor's laughter among the explosions, a haunting symphony that promised doom with each note. The last shreds of hope seemed to vanish with each agonizing heartbeat. "Don't let them take you, Olivia," my mother murmured, her voice barely a whisper now. "You must hold on to your light." Her eyes fluttered, and I caught the glint of something that resembled fear, or perhaps it was recognition. The flickering flame of her spirit was fading, but the word light ignited something deep within me, the very essence of her belief urging me forward. In that moment, the crackle of an explosion rattled the ground beneath us. I turned to Lucas, urgency erupting in my chest as panic surged through me. "We have to go. Listen, we need to maintain control here. We have to think," he shouted against the cacophony surrounding us. "We can find safety, but no." I cut him off, frustration clouding my thoughts as I drew away, my mother's hand slipping from mine. "I can't. I have to save her. She's all I have left." With that, I knelt beside my mother, desperately willing her strength to return, searching her eyes for any glimmer of the woman who had once stood so fiercely against the world for me. "Talk to me. What do I do?" I begged. She looked around, fear sharp across her features, then back to me, her voice barely above a whisper. "Trust in what you don't understand, Olivia. Trust in yourself." "What do you mean?" The urgency pressed deeper, like a knot tightening in my chest. But she only shook her head, the flicker in her eyes dimmed further, and I could feel the endless weight of consequence pushing down upon us both. My grip faltered around her, and just when despair threatened to swallow me whole, I felt a gentle touch on my shoulder. I turned to see Ryan, his expression softened with empathy. "We're with you, Olivia. Well, find a way." With a shaky breath, I nodded, grateful for the light they offered in this deepening darkness. But just as I turned back to my mother, something shifted in her gaze recognition. "Olivia," she winced, reaching toward my face, her fingers trembling as they brushed against my cheek. "The necklace, you must wear it." "Mom, what are you talking about? Promise me, do not let it fall." Her words trailed off, and I felt my heart lurch as the shadows reached out greedily, threatening to grasp her once more. Before I could say anything, the ground shook violently, sending us sprawling. I scrambled to my feet, only to find Lucas had jumped to protect me, shielding both my mother and me from debris that rained down around us. "Get up!" he barked, urgency coursing through his voice. "We have to go, now. You're not leaving me." My words were a naked plea, but he didn't have time to respond. Ryan yanked me back as the shadows writhed forward, encroaching closer, reminding us of all we stood to lose. But in that split moment, standing tall against an unseen horror, a revelation crashed over me. I could feel the weight of the necklace resting against my chest, my mother's last gift. It pulsed gently, as if it held a heartbeat of its own. "Olivia, listen," Ryan shouted, his tone strained. "Whatever she's holding on to, you need to take it with you." "No. I can't leave her," I screamed into the encroaching darkness. In the chaos, I didn't realize the shadows were evolving, taking form, glaring eyes visible within the dark, and it wasn't just Victor's face I saw, shadows of my past emerged, pulling memories out from the depths, a fractured childhood filled with bright moments overshadowed by grief. Suddenly, as if struck by a lightning bolt of clarity, I grasped the necklace tighter, the cool metal feeling electric against my clammy palms. "I will remember you," I whispered to my mother, my heart an unfurling storm. "I promise." With that, the shadows hissed, frustration emanating from them as if I had stolen a piece of the darkness itself. It swirled around, threatening to swallow me whole, but I would not break. I had my family, my friends, and no matter what had happened, I was not the only one with burdens to carry anymore. Move. Lucas shouted again, pulling me toward him. And as we surged forward, weaving through the chaos with determination igniting the air around us, I glanced back one last time. My mother was bathed in effervescent light, the shadows shrinking back, as if the recognition of our connect-ion tether wrought from love and hope kept Victor at bay, but just as we turned to flee, haunting laughter echoed from the depths of the chaos. A single voice broke through the clamor, clear and triumphant. "Did you think you could escape me?" My heart dropped, and suddenly a heartrending realization assaulted. Meth threat remained unfurled, the truth still blurred. There was more woven into this fate, more than I'd yet understood. With a sensation like a knife piercing my chest, I knew then that the descent into darkness was only just beginning. The shadows held more than just Victor's malice, they knew secrets that could shatter our very existence. And before I made sense of it all, the ground shifted again, and Victor's voice loomed, whispering promises of despair that gripped my heart. In that moment, I felt the light of resolve flicker but did not die. I would unravel the truths sewn within the fabric of this nightmare, and the sacrifices made would lead me to the pieces of myself I'd lost along the way. As we ran, I knew it, my fight was far from over. We would face the shadows, uncover the deep-rooted truths, but I sensed an unsettling revelation lurking in the depths, waiting to be unveiled. My heart raced as we plunged deeper into the darkness ahead, and I could only hope that the light within us would guide us through what loomed. Would we become the light against the oppressive shadow, or would we be lost within it forever? The air hung heavy with the scent of ash and despair, each breath a reminder of the chaos that had become our life. The night had turned into a battleground, a whirlwind of emotions where shadows danced with possibility and danger melded with the mundane. We pushed on, hurtling through the depths of uncertainty, Lucas's hand firmly clasping me, a lifeline empowering me to face the darkness ahead. My heart pounded in my chest as we crashed through the underbrush, the cacophony of pursuit echoing behind us. The night swelled with Victor's laughter, mingling with the frantic pulses of our own fear. We could not lose sight of each other, that was the vow we had made, together. But somewhere deep within, an unshakable truth bound our fates. My mother's cryptic warning loomed larger, the shadows held secrets, sown with guilt and regret, waiting to ensnare us all. There was a familiar cadence threading through our steps, urging me to confront the heart of the storm swirling within, and I could not deny the pull of the past that stretched its grasp upon me once again. "Olivia!" Ryan shouted, his voice rising above the chaos, breaking into the fog of despair. I turned to face him, the fierce determination radiating from him igniting a spark within me. "We need to find a way to turn the tide. He won't stop unless we expose him." "Expose him?" I echoed, the weight of that realization anchoring heavily within me. But as Victor's presence loomed, his laughter crackling like static on the air, I understood what it meant to unveil the shadows, perhaps bringing to light not just his secrets, but our own. "We have to find my mother. We need to know what she carried before it consumes us." Lucas nodded, understanding the urgency that flowed beneath my words. "Then let's move, we have to find safety before he gains ground." But even as I spoke, the dark clouds of foreboding settled, more formidable than before, and the truth washed over me. His fight was for everything we cherished, everything we had lost. The weight of my past settled into my bones, each unsettling truth beckoning, filling my heart with resolve. I would not let darkness define us. As we tore through the trees, a shimmering light flickered up, a hint of promise amid the chaos. Instinctively, we surged forward, the light growing brighter with each step until we burst through the underbrush and into a clearing adorned with chaos. Sirens blared in the distance, flashing blue lights reflecting off the shattered remains of what had once been whole, and there she was. My mother stood at the very edge, her figure bathed in light that contrasted the shadows. Yet, it was filled with an undeniable darkness, a haunting dread that twisted at the edges of her resolve. I felt a wave of emotion crash over me as I took in her thin frame, her weariness painted in the lines of her face. But in her eyes burned a flicker of recognition, they were alive, sharp with urgency as she steadying herself against the obliterating chaos surrounding us. "Mom!" I cried, desperate to reach her but feeling the weight of every shadow that dared to rise between us. "You came. You found us, yes, but it's not safe, she responded, a tremor threading through her words. You must understand, Olivia. The truth is more dangerous than you can imagine. The flicker of anxiety twisting in her words ignited my own, but I could not back away. I want to know. I implored, the fire inside me growing steadier, the kaleidoscope of chaos morphing into clarity. What do you know? But before she could respond, Victor stepped into the clearing, cloaked in malice intertwined with triumph. Ah, the prodigal daughter finds her way back, how enchanting, he crooned, eyes glimmering with a seductive cruelty. The air thickened as fear threaded through me. You see, dear Olivia, your mother tried to hide her past, but secrets have a way of clawing their way back to the surface, don't they? I felt Lucas shift beside me, protectiveness radiating from him, but I could feel the urge to step closer, to decipher the truth looming in Victor's twisted smile. What do you want from us? I asked, steadied by the presence of the family who stood beside me. Everything, dear girl, Victor sneered shrewdly, the words dripping with a predatory promise. I want to reclaim my investment. Your mother, she betrayed me, and now that she has returned to collect what was rightfully mine, she brings with her baggage she can't escape. Baggage? I echoed back, anger swelling within until I felt the tension crackling like static energy. Do you mean the truth? Ah, Victor grasped, his grin widening with a nefarious delight. You're catching on. Her betrayal runs deeper than you understand, and if I have my way, you'll learn just how fragile your bond truly is. No. I shouted, my voice cutting through the din of chaos. I felt the weight of history wrapped around us, every grim truth constricting tighter but not quelling the fire ignited from within. You won't make us turn on each other, Victor laughed genuinely, a mirthful sound that echoed against the shadows. Oh, but that is the beauty of it. It is inconceivable how easily trust can shatter. All it takes is a single crack, dormant secrets bursting forth into the light. Just then, my mother stepped forward, a faint tremor echoing in her voice, steadying herself against the darkness that tangled our fates. You don't know the whole story, Olivia. Your father. But before she could finish, Victor surged forward. Don't pretend to go down that rabbit hole, Lisa. You chose to abandon your past, to shield your daughter from the truth, but now that she knows more than you realize, the stakes are raised. Stop. I howled, rage surging as I felt the fractures in my family's fabric widen, ready to burst open into betrayal. As shadows encroached, the images of my brother's laughter fluttered at the edges, whispering of the joy that once filled our days, and the promise of light that illuminated the darkness. But clarity sank its teeth into my heart, a stark realization. My mother guarded secrets that had once felt insurmountable, and I needed to know, Mom. I urged, feeling my voice surge with commitment. Tell me the truth. I don't want to live in shadows any longer. Her eyes locked with mine, and they shimmered with vulnerability but forged with an underlying strength. My mistakes were driven by love. I wanted to protect you from a world burdened with darkness. Your father, he was caught in Victor's grasp, and I chose to protect you above all else. But, Olivia, secrets can be chains that bind more tightly than the truths lurking beneath them. Victor laughed again, a sound designed to provoke the mounting tension like an itch no hand could reach. Oh, how quaint. Family ties are exquisite, too bad they can become your downfall. But despite the dueling intensity between us, I felt a shift. The words rippling with purpose began to thread together a plan born not just from pain, but the strength of our resolve. This was not just about confrontations anymore, it was a reckoning. Enough. I shouted, defiance coloring every syllable, tightening my grip on Lucas' hand. You will not use our fears against us, Victor. We stand together. We will unravel the truth. As the shadows pressed in, I gazed around at my familiar Lucas, at Ryan, at the flickering hope alive in my mother's eyes, and through that recognition, the strength of our bond surged within me. Dread hung heavily in the air, but I could feel clarity breaking through, generating waves of light that would part the sea of darkness before us. Whatever brought us here could be unbound, and I realized those chains held my past, but they would not govern my future. So you wish to dance? Victor spat, his contempt seeping through every pore, his eyes glinting with the edge of malice. "Let's see how well you all move when the darkness closes in. I assure you, the truth will come at a cost." With that, shadows enveloped us, but I stood firm, refusing to be swallowed. "Whatever the cost may be, I will share my light," I vowed, my heart steady, filled with an unwavering resolve. Around me, I felt the warmth of my family, a solid foundation amid the storm, and a flicker of hope ignited once more. Together, we would confront the shadows, for within the truth lay our redemption, and though Victor loomed like a specter, I understood we would emerge victorious, lighting our path against the dark, crafting a future defined by love, not burden. And as we faced his encroaching power, my voice rang clearly, unquenchable and resolute: "We are the hope in the shadows." In that moment, amid the shadows, I felt the ties that had bound me transform. They weaved into a cloak of strength, and I knew no matter what unfolded, we had the power to step into the light together. As we moved forward, arms linked, I whispered a final wish to the universe, clinging to the knowledge that love, trust, and unwavering resolve could conquer any darkness. "No more secrets," I declared with conviction, my voice rising above the chaos, "for together, we are the truth that sets us free." And with that, we surged forward, intertwined, drawing from the light of hope that burned tirelessly between us.